Welcome back to What a Life. Jen, are you comfortable now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm struggling over here.
She's struggling. We're in a little different setup, so she's trying to find her new comfortable way of sitting.
Yes.
But hi, welcome to our listeners, not just our viewers. Love you guys too. You can't see how Jaden's sitting, but she's actually sitting kind of weird right now.
I know. I'm trying. I'll probably adjust throughout
She
this
was
episode.
crisscross applesauce with the cat.
Okay. You know, it's okay.
I wasn't judging.
She wasn't judging.
Okay. Yeah. So welcome back to What a Life. Real life, real talk kind of sisters. Blah blah blah. We're your hosts. I'm Jalen.
And I'm Jaden.
Yeah. We still need to figure out our whole intro
I know.
situation.
We're like 4 episodes in now, and we still haven't figured out what we're gonna say at the beginning of season 2. It's okay.
It's whatever. Anyway, yeah. So today we have. I'm really excited for today's episode. Actually.
No, same. I am too.
Do you want to say what we're talking about, or do you want to do the little?
We can say what we're talking about.
Okay.
So today's episode is all about
Breakups.
breakups. Very sad topic, but we're starting it off with a fun
very
little
sad topic, as you're literally like breakups.
Well, it's sad looking back now. If you're not going through one, you're just like, oh, breakups. But like, obviously, if you're going through one, it's like
it's
the worst
sad
thing in the world. But before, I thought it'd be fun to look at some of the internet's most iconic couples and talk about them.
Okay, we should also. There's so many breaking up right now, though, too.
Oh, I know. I was briefly looking through this list, and I was like,
Oh my goodness, have you heard
they're not
about
together.
Taylor Swift and that football player? I don't know his name.
What?
I'm appalled that I don't know his name, but yeah,
They're together?
they may be dating. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Taylor. I thought she was in this season of like
But
independence.
listen, it's so
I'm
good
conquering the world.
because I saw this whole like on TikTok. It was like this whole thing, and it was talking about how she's going to like break up with him because he's on like a team that's like the rival for her hometown or something like that. I don't know.
That'd
But
be
like
a
she's
good
like gonna break
song.
up with him, so like that he like ruins the whole vibe of the team. And so then for like when they go to the game, like they lose, and then like her home team wins.
She is really good at her
Anyway.
little,
That's
little
such a
things she
Taylor
drops
move,
there.
like,
So
honestly,
that
if that's
is,
what she's
honestly,
doing.
It's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, what are your couples?
All right. First couple, we have Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds.
Okay, classic.
They are iconic. They are a power
Classic.
couple. I love them. Next up, Zendaya and Tom Holland. They
I
are
love
literally
them.
one of my favorite couples. I do love Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds.
Did you see the I saw this on TikTok too, but for her birthday he posted like the most random picture of her.
Really?
Yeah, it was like this girl, she was like, Zendaya literally goes to photo shoots like every week. She has so many great pictures, and if she was like wearing goggles after swimming or something, and she was like, he literally picked this picture just because like he doesn't even see her as like a superstar, he just sees her as his girlfriend, and I think that's the sweetest
I feel like
thing
that's
ever.
such a guy move though. Like girls always think about like what pictures to post and like finding the best one, and guys just like throw whatever they want up on the internet, and you're just like you know those things where it's like the pictures I take of him versus the pictures he takes of me. It's just like, I don't know. That's so fun though. I love Tom Holland and Zendaya. If they break up, literally the world's just like, I don't know. I always joke there's no hope.
So sad.
Just kidding. There is hope, but
There's always hope.
there's always hope. Okay, next up we have Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
Okay, so are we putting them above Kate and what's his face?
Kate?
Or what's the girl?
Blake Lively?
No. The other royal
Zendaya and
couple.
Oh, Kate. Okay, so they were also on the list, I think. Kate
Okay.
Middleton and Prince William.
Yeah, are we putting these two higher than...
No, just because I'm not a Meghan Markle fan. But
Yeah, she thinks she's crazy.
yeah, that's just my little conspiracy theory. But I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're kind of a cute couple.
I think they're cute. They are cute. I mean, they don't seem to have any. I mean, obviously you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but they seem to be. I won't throw in my own personal feelings in there. But yeah, would you put them higher? Like, what do you think?
Well, when you say famous couples, my mind immediately goes to Kate Middleton and Prince William.
William,
I'm calling him Willie. Prince Willie.
Prince Willie.
So immediately they go at the top of my list just because like when you say iconic couple, I just think of them.
Yeah, that's true.
But like
They've
also
been
the
solid.
others are
Yeah.
Especially Tom Holland and Zendaya.
I know, they're so good. Okay, next up we have Barack and Michelle Obama.
Classic. I watched a movie about them on an airplane.
No
once.
way, really?
Yeah.
They have a movie?
Yeah, but like how they met and stuff or something.
What? Oh, well, I just
You
remember.
find the strangest things on airplanes when you're flying.
No, that's
On
true.
those
The
TVs,
stuff they have on
the
those are
strangest
strange.
things.
I just have memories of one of our teachers in middle school just like talking to us about how he loves their relationship. He was like, even if I don't like agree with some of his things politically, like I will respect him as a husband. He's a great husband and a great family guy. And I was just like, what is this class
That's
turning
so funny.
into? It was so funny though. All right.
Move your mic away from your face. You're gonna blow these people's
Sorry,
ears
yeah.
out.
If you're listening to headphones, I'm talking really loud. Okay.
That's a change for us.
I know. Okay, next I have John Krasinski, I think is how you say his last name, and Emily Blunt. Do you know of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to know that they were like together. I didn't realize
That's
how
so
iconic
funny.
they were. And then when I found out they were together, I was like, oh yes, this is perfect.
Classic. I mean, I didn't like. I knew there were a couple, but like, I wouldn't have put them on the list because I didn't really know much.
I
about
just
them.
saw something that was funny on Facebook. I saw someone post about how Pam from The Office and Jim, obviously they're iconic in The Office, but how people don't realize that they're not married in real life. So when she's out and about and she sees him with her actual husband, they'll look at him and they'll be like, "You're not Jim. Who are you?" And she's like, I feel so bad for him because the amount of times people are like,
you know that the episode where he's in it,
her husband? No. Oh, I'm still watching it, so I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I don't.
He's in it?
Yeah, he's in one of the episodes. Where are you in it?
I'm on season like 4, I think.
But do you know how it ends? Like, do you know? Like,
I know little bits and pieces.
Do you know about like Jim, like and Pam, like how their storyline goes?
No.
Oh, okay.
They're engaged right now. If you've never seen The Office, I'm sorry I just spoiled it, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I haven't gotten there yet.
I'll tell you when you get there.
Okay. Next on the list is Simone Biles and Jonathan Owens.
Wait, she's in a relationship?
She just got married, and apparently they're very iconic.
Who's that guy?
That's her husband.
No, but like who?
Jonathan
how is
Owens.
he relevant?
I think he's an athlete.
Okay.
I think. I could have made that up, but I think he's an athlete.
Wow. I love her dress though.
I know her wedding pictures. I remember seeing them all over when they got married. Like apparently it was a very big deal. I don't know much about them, but they seem really cute.
Wow, I need to get with the times.
I know. Okay. We have Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner, but unfortunately I think they're going through a breakup right now. So that's
crazy.
It's really sad. I thought it was fake, but
oh my goodness, do you know that you watched The Next Steps, right?
Yeah.
That couple that they just got married?
They just got married.
Did you see their first dance thing?
No, what was
they
it?
did like a choreographed dance and they got like their friend from the show in it too.
Well, if you take two dancers met, I think they met on the show. They may have met somewhere else, but like that'd be awesome.
It was so cool.
Now
I watched it like
look
3
this
times.
Up. That's so fun. Oh my gosh. All right, I think that was like the last big one. Some of these I don't know. Okay.
Priyanka Chopra
and Nick Jonas. They are very iconic.
That's iconic.
I love them. They're very
That's
good.
iconic.
I hope that they never get a divorce. I mean, I didn't want that for Joe, obviously, but I don't know. Not choosing favorites, but
like Priyanka. Honestly, though, if like they do need to, I hope it's because like Priyanka deserves like the world, and Joe's kind of like just scum in my mind. I just love Priyanka.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big like Jonas Brothers like.
Yeah.
What's the name for a Jonas Brothers fan like Taylor Swift? Is there one?
A Joe Bro.
Joe Bro, is that the thing? I don't know.
I don't know. But like just compared to Priyanka, I feel like I'm just like whatever.
Yeah, that's true. All right, and lastly we have Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, which I thought that they had a little thing, like a little fight or something. Or I remember she was in the news for like not good reasons.
Really?
Yeah, like she like had like done but I don't know if it was like old and coming out now, like it was stuff she did in the past. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that
the last thing I saw of them was another TikTok. Can you tell I'm on TikTok a lot? It was a video of him playing All of Me, and he was playing the piano and he messed up, and she was like sitting behind the guy recording or whatever, and she goes, "He messed up." It was so funny. And the caption was like, "Oh, she always keeps me humble."
That's so funny. Oh my word. Yeah, I actually kind of want to research more about them because I don't know much, but anyway, that's our list of little iconic couples. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good ones out there that I love.
You can think of any others that we miss.
Yeah.
We definitely miss them, and you're going to say something and we're going to be like, That's awkward. We should have said them.
Well, I just went by the internet. It's like, it was like 45. I only picked a few, but 45 most iconic couples out there. So
45, that seems like so many. Like, oh my gosh.
Honestly, though, I feel like if you haven't broken up in Hollywood, you're iconic. So many of them go through divorces. Like, if you've stayed with the same person for a certain amount of years, like, you're iconic in Hollywood, which is so funny. But anyway, that brings us into our topic of the day, which is breakups.
Breakups boo.
Breakups boo. That's what Jalen
That's what I've been wanting to call this episode.
That's what we should put as a title.
Okay.
Breakups boo.
We're talking about breakups boo. It's okay.
Yeah. But we have a lot on this topic. We kind of divided it into like 3 different categories. So we kind of have at the beginning, we're kind of just going to share like the background of dating, I guess, before we kind of go into breakups. Because obviously when you get into a relationship, the goal is not to break up.
What?
I know, it's shocking.
Oh my gosh.
It's shocking. So we kind of want to talk about that. And then we're going to have our category called Maybe You Should Dip. Jalen again came up with this title.
That's my main role on this podcast is to come up with fun titles or things.
Coming up with the fun names. So we have Maybe You Should Dip, and then that's going to bring us into breaks, where you're like, okay, should I dip? Should I stay? Do you need a break? Our thoughts on that. And then we have a fun little section about trauma bonding, because that's something.
Fun section?
It's not actually fun. I'm just calling it a fun little section. But yeah, because that's something Jill and I both, I think, went through. We were talking about it, so we want to talk on that because that's something we can actually speak from experience on. And then we have decision time, to break up or to not break up.
I'm still stuck on trying to come up with a fun name for trauma bonding.
I know, you should think of it as we get to it. And then we have some ways to cope, and then a fun little Q&A at the end from questions that you guys actually submitted, which we're super excited to answer.
This could very easily become 2 parts.
Oh my gosh, it could. I'm like hoping that we can get through it to where it's not, but we'll see. It may be long.
We could even do like a whole other episode about trauma bonding.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we could talk all about that.
Because girl, do we have stuff to say.
Okay, but to start, the background to dating. So obviously, like we said, when you are starting to date, you're entering that world.
Yeah.
What were you
I was just gonna preface, we come from a Christian perspective.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you do a little.
We come from a Christian perspective, so obviously both of us, whenever we go into a relationship, or when Christians go into a relationship, it's not the idea of dating long term, it's the idea of dating for marriage, no matter what. So that's what I'm saying. Now, back to our regularly scheduled
even if
program.
you're not coming from like a Christian perspective, like there's still obviously stuff you can take away from this.
We
just always say that whenever we talk about stuff, it's from a Christian
because like I feel like people may like be confused like when we talk about like marriage, like because Christians do like they go into a relationship and it's like for marriage. And so people get so concerned. I feel like
what?
Why are they talking about marriage?
I know. I actually think I wrote that in a note first talking about it. I was like, it doesn't mean that the first guy you date has to be your husband in 3 months. Like, that's not how dating works.
Ring by spring.
I know, ring by spring, honestly. But yeah, we wanted to really talk on this because I think that our world in general has a very skewed view on like dating and relationships. And it's kind of like, everyone always says Hollywood kind of plays it up to be like this whole fairy tale, and then like you break up and you get back together, break up, or like end up with this guy. Hallmark's all about like she's dating one guy, cheats on him, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like most people are dating for like more the fantasy part of it and like being able to identify with someone else. And like in our world, you're dating and your identity turns into whoever you are dating too. And so I feel like that's a lot of what the dating culture has turned into. Or like obviously dating for sex or like doing stuff like that. But
and it's so funny because I was reading from somewhere and it's like you'd think that people would learn by now after like going through heartbreak after years of like everyone in our culture going through this, but like you don't. It's kind of just like a cycle that repeats. And one thing that Jill and I are both reading now, I think, Outdated by Jonathan Fakluda. It's such a good book. Like, I love it so much. I'm reading it for a second time now, just like with different perspectives, and it's so good. So
I'm only on chapter 3.
I'm on chapter 2, but but like I have read the full thing and it's so good. So we highly suggest that you read that. But he talks about how dating wasn't invented by God, which I never thought about before reading the book, and how like marriage was. So dating was a newer concept. I don't remember what year it was invented in, but like how we kind of
like it wasn't like invented. I feel
it wasn't invented, but like even
like in 1982,
back in the day, I know
on September 2nd, dating was invented.
That's true. But like even thinking back to like back in history, like people were arranged marriages, or like a guy would give like, oh, I'll give you 3 cows for your daughter. Like it's like they went out on dates, or like, oh, do I like you?
Yeah.
Like maybe this worked. Like no. So
yeah, I feel like back then kind of it was very not arranged, but like your family and your friends had so much to do with like who you end up with, and because they saw you who you were and they saw this person, they were like, oh yeah, and so they communicate. And I feel like now we've become a very individual, independent based society, and so we do it for ourselves, and we obviously have a skewed view of who we are and like what we want. So I feel like even in like the Christian world, there are like, it is so pressed upon you to find community and have them speak into your relationship or speak into things that you're doing too. But yeah, I feel like that's just one thing that's so wrong with dating in our culture.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's like so important, which I feel like people don't do enough, is like before you date, is just like take a step back and like be honest with yourself if you're even ready. You know what I mean? Like, am I emotionally ready? Am I like, if you're a Christian, like, am I spiritually ready to like devote time? Because like I think a lot of people, like you said, go into it with like, oh, dating is about me. Like, what do I get out of it? I want to do it for fun. I want all of this stuff. But like, no, it's really about like serving another person.
Yeah,
and, like,
you have to be ready to serve someone.
Like, are you ready to take on that pressure and like give up and be selfless? Because if you're not, that's not a bad thing. Like, it's better to be honest with yourself than to like bring another person's heart into it, and then it just gets messy.
Yeah, the biggest part about a relationship is putting that person above yourself. And if you're not doing that, it's not gonna work. Yeah.
And another thing that I liked that Jonathan Puckluda said was like, you should know within the first like few months, even like it's common sense if this is a person that you could see yourself marrying or like being with, or if you're like, oh, like this probably won't work. Not to say within the first like few months you should know like, oh, I'm marrying them. Like no, but like could you potentially be with them? Like if you find things that you're like, oh, I could not live with this for the rest of my life, like why are you messing around? Like move on, you know what I mean? Like take time or find someone else. So I don't know, I think that there's a lot that we can all learn from dating in our culture now to not get hurt. But
yes, there's so much.
But yeah, we're gonna move into our little maybe you should dip section, assuming that either you're going through a breakup or maybe you're listening and you're in a relationship and you're like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know, like, if we're going to be together. We've both been there, and I actually listened to a podcast when I was in a relationship that actually helped me kind of reflect on if a relationship was right. So hopefully this can be helpful, but we also want to say before that we're not experts on this. So if we say something like, don't be like, oh, they said this. So, like, no, we're just
at least we've both been through breakups. So.
Yeah, we have a little bit of experience. So like also,
wouldn't it be terrible? You know, like how some like Christian couples who get married after like 3 months and they try to speak into your like singlehood.
I know.
Your breakup.
No.
We're not like that.
We're not like that. We've been through it. So yeah, just remember that we're human too. We've been through it. But we're not experts. So yeah, we're just kind of sharing our hearts with you guys. But do you want to take away the first? Maybe you should dip section.
My first is if you're thinking about it often, or like just like more in a serious, not like, oh, what would happen if we broke up? But like, I just like don't know if I like see this for the rest of my life, like she was saying, or just like thinking things happen or constantly happening, and that's just a constant thought in your head. That is a red flag. We call that a big warning sign. Maybe you should dip.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew the name of this somewhere. I heard someone talking about it, and she was talking about how this isn't a bad thing in relationships, how there's actually like a thing where you overthink and you're like, oh, I think that we're not working out, or like we should break up. But it's not over big red flags. It's like literally just you inside playing something up to like, oh, maybe we're not working because of this really little thing, or like maybe I'm not ready for this. True. Like that's different than like
if there's things constantly happening, like yeah. Not like if he didn't get you if he forgot your sauce at Chick-fil-A. Don't be thinking that.
If he doesn't know your order, like, that's okay. That's fixable.
We can fix that.
We can fix that. Okay.
But there are some things in life and in some men and women that we cannot fix, or we cannot be in a relationship solely to fix. And I think that's another thing. If you view your relationship kind of as a project, or you don't love, like, you love the idea of what this person can be one day, or who they were when you first started, like, there's not that guarantee that they are going to be who you've built them up to be in your mind. So if that is what you're constantly doing, and you're seeing a project like, oh, I can fix that about them, or they'll be like this one day, that maybe you may want to think about the relationship a little bit more.
Yeah, that's really good. Another thing is if you're not feeling at peace with it. So I know that's kind of hard. I struggled a lot with the whole like feeling at peace type of thing, because I, again, can overthink. So I was like, oh, like I don't know what feeling at peace feels like. But it's kind of something to where, like, look at your physical health, look at your mental health. Like, is every day that you're waking up, you're wondering, like, oh, is it going to be a good day with this person, or is there going to be a bad day? Like, are they, if you're always worried about how they're going to be, or how your relationship is going to go for that day, like, your mental health is declining, your physical health is declining. I know that's something that I was looking at, like, I didn't even realize, but, like, it was just taking such a toll on me. And like Jalen said, like, talking to outside people, just having them speak into it, being like, oh, like, what do you think about this relationship? Like, are there any red flags that you may see? And ask them to tell you, like, honestly, because love is blind. So you may not see them, and other people may. So just having that accountability in your life is really important.
I also feel like, kind of like going along what she said, like just looking at things. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, where if like good things happen, but you're like, okay, what's going to be the bad? What's going to be the negative to this? That's also like, I don't feel like that in a relationship, that should be something like when something good happens, or like when I don't know. I just feel like you shouldn't have that thought in your mind. Like, oh my goodness, they got me flowers. What did they do?
Yeah, that's
you know what
true.
I mean?
That's very true. Yeah, we're kind of going to touch on that in trauma bonding, but that is such a, like, did you think of a name?
Showing my colors? No, I
haven't. That is, like, such a true thing, because honestly, like, you can be so caught up in, like, the little good things, but, like, not see all of the bad things, and that can just skew your perspective completely.
Okay.
Another thing is, Jalen actually put this one down, and I was like, I never thought about that, but it's good. Until you have a wedding ring on your finger, it's you before them. And yeah, you can.
And it's a very, like, kind of like a gray area too, because, like, I know we just said that you have to be willing to put them before you, but you have to think of it this way, right? You are in a relationship, and it is a refining period for yourself, and you're also, like, kind of studying them, learning them, and how they will fit into your life and how you can fit into their life. And if they aren't that missing piece for you, like, yes, you do have to be constantly with them, for them, helping them, pushing them along, growing them closer to, pushing them toward Christ, you. If that is not happening, if that's not all happening, you put yourself before them. Your relationship with God ultimately comes first. And if that is not what's happening in your relationship, you come before them. And it is okay to break up. That is something that I really struggled with too, is just the idea. I was like, oh, but we're in my mind, we're getting married, dating for marriage, like we said. So I was like, I'm in this relationship, this is my person. But ultimately, if your relationship isn't getting you closer to God, put yourself first. Babes, you don't have a wedding ring. It's okay.
And it's like, there are some things where it's okay to be selfish. Like, in situations like that, like, if you are like a chronic people pleaser, like, it's okay to be selfish. Do not be sitting there being like,
preach.
Well, what about them? What about their family? What about our friends? No. All these people think we're like the world's greatest couple. Like, no, it's okay. They'll get over it.
What do you think?
Exactly.
What do you think?
It's okay. Okay. Oh my gosh. But you also touched on this too. Like, also, if you haven't been pushed towards God by them, and you're only going to God when you're in trouble, like, red flag. That's a sign that maybe you should dip. It can kind of be hard, like, when you're serving someone else, and in a relationship, especially like with the honeymoon phase, and like everything's going great, to kind of put God on the back burner. And it's so crucial. Like, one of the signs that you know a relationship is like going really healthy and good is when both of you are like running towards God. You're both checking in on each other. Like, have you read your Bible today? Are you praying together? Like, how can I pray for you? And if, like, that's not happening, and the only time you are doing that, or like going to God, is if you're like, I'm in like this crazy situation, or like I'm hurt again, like what's going on, like that's a major red flag. And that's maybe a sign you should step back and be like, okay, when was the last time like we talked about God or prayed or anything? So yeah, that's a really big thing. But
yeah, what she said, ditto. But yeah, I feel like that was a good of the maybe you should dip.
Yeah, so we just said maybe you should dip. Okay, you're having the thoughts.
Maybe think about it. Maybe dipping.
Maybe it's time. Okay, now you may be like where we once were, or maybe your friends telling you this, family, like maybe you're like, okay, what about a break? Maybe we just need some time apart. Maybe we just need to focus on ourselves, come back together. And again, before we get into the breaks category, like every relationship's different. It's not like one size fits all. We're not gonna be like, oh yes, do a break, no, do a break. Like really, it's just kind of, we're gonna just give some things to think about to where you may make that decision for yourself, or maybe you're in a break and you're like, okay, this isn't gonna work. So we just want to kind of give some tips, but don't take like, don't feel like, oh, they said I have to take a break, so take it. Like no,
it's take everything we say with a grain of salt.
Yeah, but
so the first thing about breaks is no contact. It's hard at first. Trust us, we both know. When you go into a break, you're like, oh, we can still like talk like a little bit, like just a little bit, but that's gonna turn into a lot of it. So yeah, no contact, no good morning, good night.
Do not fall into the good morning, like I love you, we're gonna be great, we're gonna be fine. Like no, just don't do it, okay? Don't do it.
Yeah, and then going into the break, definitely talk with the other person about expectations.
That's huge.
Make sure you're on the same page.
Yeah, because if you're not, and you're in your head, you're like, oh, I don't want any contact. And the other person's like, I'm going to send them that I love them every day for like until the break's over. Like, then you're just going to be like, it's tension.
Yeah,
you know?
It's also going to affect the clarity of the break that it's supposed to provide you if you're doing that. So
yeah, that's good. Another thing is to make sure that you are separating yourself however you need to from like their family, their friends, because obviously, yes, you're on a break with them, but it can be very easy for people in their life that obviously love and care about them, and obviously like should hopefully love and care about you. They're gonna be wanting to like be the what's the word? They're gonna try to like mend the relationship, and that can kind of just cause more problems. So obviously don't be rude and mean, but like do what you need to. Like if you need to separate yourself. And
build
have
those boundaries with people. Like if you need to talk to them, be like, look this is where I am in my life right now. For at least the time being, I'm just gonna have to build a boundary between me and you, or said person, or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, and like we said, like breakups are a time where it's okay to be selfish. Obviously, like not in a bad, mean way, but like you need to focus on you, or else you're not gonna heal, they're not gonna heal, and it's just gonna like be harder in the end. So yeah, definitely do what you need to do.
Yeah. The next thing is just to kind of have accountability. Have people to talk to, have people take you out and do things, because you were with this person for so long, you did everything with them, and so you're gonna kind of be stuck for a little bit. But like if you have people around you, like, oh, let's go shopping. Retail therapy is a real thing. Even if you're going through a break and it's not necessarily a breakup, go shopping. Like this is your excuse to go shopping. Do it. Like
that's really good.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
That's good.
Just go shopping. Everything's okay now.
Shopping, retail therapy. I would also say that I would be very careful not to have the mindset of like, oh, but like we're the like blank percent of couples that are gonna work out. I think that you always hear about like the couples that break up, but then like there's that certain percent that are gonna get back together, get married, live a long happy life together. Like kind of make sure you're not putting those expectations, and you're not only looking at it from the point of view that like, oh, like we're the 2%, like we're gonna make it, it's just a rough patch. Like make sure to just not like have a clear head, and that's why accountability is so important. Like having other people speak into it, because if you're not the 2%, like that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not gonna have this amazing love story in the future. So
what I will say going off of that, I think we'll talk about it more when we get to the actual breakup, but it is okay to think about like whatever you need to think to get through each step of like the grieving period. So I know personally I had to be like, oh, maybe I will be part of that percent. And then like as time went on, I was just like, you just kind of forget, and you write things down, and then you just like, you're kind of like, oh, it's okay. Yeah. God has the most beautiful love story for me. and it is okay if I'm not part of this percent and my story is still being written. But yeah, it's okay to kind of have those thoughts, but don't get stuck on them is what I think is the most important.
Yeah, because obviously, like Jalen said, we'll talk about it later, but like you're going to go through the different waves, and like it's good to process them, and like we're going to say like later it's okay to like believe what you need to get through it. So
that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. And then I also think it's important to remember, if you're choosing to do a break, it's something that you want to do, is you need to give it a good amount of time. I looked it up, and I don't know the exact statistics. These are kind of just like rough ones, but like it takes 21 days to make a habit. And sometimes it even takes like 254. So I saw numbers that range from like 14 days,
it's like
254
days, 3,500.
I know, like it really varies, but like do not have that mindset of like, oh, like give him 2 weeks, like he'll be a new person or she'll be a new person. Like that's not really what happens. Like habits take time, and if there's things you have to work on. She drilled this
into my head.
If there's things you have to, well, it's not like a bad thing to think that. Like you're not a terrible person. Like it's genuine. Like we all have been there. We're like, oh, they'll change.
You're just like, oh, it's fine.
It's fine. Everything's fine. But like you like have to understand that it takes time, and like even if someone changes for a period, that doesn't mean it's to the point where it's a habit, and that's like the new them. You know what I mean? Like it takes like they could put on a facade for like 2 weeks for you.
We'll get in that about trauma bonding.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But just make sure to give it time. As hard as it is, it'll get easier, and have those friends, go shopping, do whatever you have to do, but give it time.
Okay, let's see.
I think that kind of brings us into trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding. Let's see.
Trauma bonding.
Okay.
A little preface. I didn't know this was a thing.
She didn't. She just literally
yesterday.
It was so funny.
I don't even know how I came across it. I think I was looking up random like.
You should see the amount of notes she took on this.
Oh my gosh. Okay, guys. But like, if you've been through a situation like this and you didn't know it was a legit thing, like my whole world's just been open. I was like, yes, this is such a like. This is so helpful.
I finally understand.
I know, it's like when you finally understand yourself, and you're like, what? But yeah, so trauma bonding. Okay, if you don't know what trauma bonding is, I'm gonna give you kind of like a little description. Okay, and I took this off the internet, so again, just take everything with a grain of salt. Go look it up for yourself. But this is what it said on the internet. So it said, it's only natural to develop a relationship with someone who treats you with kindness. The attempts to manipulate often succeed, since you are in the early days of the relationship and believe that they can be that person again. So that's a little bit confusing. Let me kind of get into it. So trauma bonding is when you're in a relationship with someone, and
it also doesn't have to be a romantic relationship.
No, yeah, it doesn't. Which on here it says, do you want to read what the things are? It's so funny.
It says, yes, it can be between a child, an abusive caregiver, an adult, a hostage and a kidnapper, and a leader and a member of a cult. So if you guys relate to any of that, I am praying for you.
I know, it touches on everything. But like literally, if you've been through any sort of like abuse is a very strong word. Okay, I don't love using the word abuse, but it's a real thing. Just like manipulation, a very difficult relationship. It's basically where trauma bonding is, where it's kind of the two characteristics are it's cyclical. How do you say that? Cyclical. That was good. It's a cycle. And there's a power imbalance. So you're in a relationship with someone, whether it's romantic or not, and things are kind of starting off good, but then things get bad, but then they get good, and you're kind of confused, like, oh, but they're good to me, but they're bad. And then you kind of get into this unhealthy cycle where it's biological, which we'll talk about, where you're looking at it and you're like, oh, wait, things are good. It doesn't really matter about the bad because they treat me right. And one thing that it says that I was like, wow, that's so true, is that it's a lot easier for someone to leave a relationship in any way when it's all bad, because like everything's bad, you're like, oh, I need to get out of this. But when it's not all bad and you have those seasons where it's good, it's a lot harder for someone, because obviously they're going to focus more on the good and they want it to work out because they are kind to them, they do love them in certain times, but then other times they don't.
You have the rose-colored glasses too.
Yeah. So if we go kind of into the two different categories here, the fact that it's cyclical, I just said that it's easier for. Sorry, my notes are a little bit.
Wherever dating goes is where I'm going.
But it says here that like love begins to overshadow the fear of further abuse. So things may happen, but again, the love in it is blinding. So you're like, oh, well, this will change, or they'll change, or it's not going to be like this forever. Like it was just a season of life. Or it says, as you regain a sense of trust, you might ignore or suppress memories of their past behavior until the cycle begins again. So it's kind of like that, where it happens, it's good, it's bad, and then you go to sleep and you wake up and it's a new day. Like it's always funny how when something happens, you wake up and it's kind of like you forget it, the emotions have died off, and you kind of, it gets pressed down, which can be very dangerous.
Or even I'd say like it goes in this cycle of it's good, it gets bad, and then you remember all the previous bad, and then it gets really good, and then it just like keeps going in that kind of circle.
It's a never-ending cycle. And then the next one, for a power imbalance, it says you feel like they control you to the point where you no longer know how to break free, and you may feel incomplete or lost without them, and eventually return simply because the abusive cycle is familiar and you don't know how to live without it yet. Which was like a wow moment, because a lot of times people look at a relationship, or they'll be in one and they're like, why don't I just leave? Or why didn't they just leave? Like they say it's all bad. Like they should have left early on, like whatever. But it also talks about how if you've never been in a situation like this, you've never been in an abusive situation, you don't know what it's like, and you truly cannot understand it because you've never gone through it.
The amount of times people are like, why did you stay?
Yeah.
You're just like, you just don't understand. Like, what, like, how your brain works in a relationship is so much different than when you're not. It's just like everything about being in a relationship is like different than you would imagine. Also, I was gonna say, I would use like the term control. I feel like when you say that, people think like physically controlling, and that is like, for me to process as like just like a domineering kind of person, I was like, oh, I was always in control. What are you talking about? But it's also kind of like neither of you nor the person really realize that they are controlling. Because I'm sure even in trauma bonding, both sides have some aspect of control over the other. But it is important to know that you don't necessarily know that, and it is not physical control.
That's really good to state, because not always, like, obviously there are some people out there that know that they're being controlling and manipulative, and that's just their goal, and like they want that, but there are people out there that do it and they don't even realize it. And like, not to like excuse the behavior, but like they don't know, and so then it can get even more unhealthy, because both of you have no idea what's going on and you're just stuck in this bad situation. So that was good to say, because sometimes you don't even realize it. But I like how it said too that like you stay in it because it's familiar, and I think sometimes it's even scarier to like leave and do something new. And I like how it said like you don't know how to live without it yet. Like it takes literally time.
Yes, especially if you're in your formative years in like high school. I feel like we may unknowingly be going through this, especially in high school, because everybody is learning, trying new things, seeing what's good and what's bad. So especially in high school, we'll get to this, we don't recommend it, but dating, that just may be the cycle of dating in high school, because people are experimenting pretty much is what's happening. And so everybody is going through this. We don't know it, but we are going through it, especially in high school.
So kind of sharing a little bit about that. If maybe you're in that situation, these are like some key signs of it. I don't want to scare anyone if you haven't gone through this, to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna get into a relationship and I'm gonna experience this and it's all bad. Like, no.
You won't.
No. That is not.
There's hope.
There is hope
still.
There are amazing relationships out there that you can break up and literally be on the best terms. And like, that's how it should be. Like that's just like, I hear stories about that, and it talked about that in the book that we're reading. Like, that's the goal. But obviously there are people that go through situations like this, and we're just taking a short little time in this podcast to talk about it, because not short, but like a little
silly, that's a
commercial break to talk about it. But here's some key signs.
A Hulu commercial break.
So some key signs are: you feel unhappy or may not like your partner anymore, but feel unable to end things. When you try to leave, they promise to change but make no effort to do so. You fixate on the good days, using them to prove they truly care. You make excuses and defend their behavior when others express concern. You continue to trust them and hope to change them. You protect them by keeping abusive behavior a secret and isolation. So this kind of all speak for themselves. We don't really need to go into it.
We don't need to go into it. But
so if you are experiencing anything like that, maybe
you just have to be real with yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe rewind, go back, listen to that again. Be real with yourself.
Yes.
Like, is that something that you are doing to yourself or doing to this other person?
Yeah.
Think about it.
And the last little thing I want to say about this, because this doesn't really necessarily have to only go with trauma bonding. It can happen just with a breakup in general. If you've decided, okay, we got to break up, it says that you may find it difficult to stop thinking about someone who hurt you and feel the urge to reach out and try again. So take out the who hurt you part. In general, you may just find it hard to stop thinking about them. And that's why it's so important for the no contact rule, because
so important.
I think everyone goes through it where they want to reach out and it's natural. You're going to think about it and you're going to want to reach out. And like, whether you have to have your friend take your phone or like block the number, delete the contact, like don't do it, because that could just open up a whole new door of like getting back into
What's kind of silly, this is a little fun part of on a TikTok, I saw this girl who takes all like her situationships and her relationships, and once they end, she puts them into the graveyard. So basically what it is she changes their contact name and everything to like the gravestone emojis, and it all goes into one section of your contact list. So it's the graveyard. And so even if she like wanted to go and contact them again, she wouldn't know who is who.
That is actually,
and I thought that was so the funniest thing.
Funny and genius. Like, I feel like that would scare me, not knowing who's who, but like at the same time, you don't need to.
Yeah, but it's just so funny, I thought.
Imagine just like looking back, you really truly see how many people have like had bad relationships or good ones.
So funny.
Oh my gosh. But anyways, we talked about what was the first category? Oh, maybe you should dip.
Breaks. I didn't think of a good name for trauma bonding, guys.
I know. Maybe by the end you'll think of it.
I've been thinking about it like this whole time. I've just been like, I can't. It's just such a depressing topic.
I know.
How do you come up with a fun
topic?
name?
It's hard. But now we've arrived to decision time to break up or not to break up. So again, we're not going to tell you if you should break up or not to break up. We are just going to talk about coping, assuming this part of the podcast, if you have broken up, okay? We're going to talk about coping.
Coping. Go shopping.
Go shopping, she said. That's so true. But yeah, breakups, again, are not easy. We are very sorry if you're going through one right now. Also, if you're a friend and your friend's going through a breakup right now, or your sibling is, like, these are some things to just remember to help them, because it's so good to be able to, like, help them in a positive way that's not going to do more harm. So yeah, but if you're going through it, we understand how hard it is, and we're very sorry, but you'll get through it, okay? We believe in you.
If we can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I don't know about that one. But
she said, I don't know.
That. Anyway, you start with coping.
Confident, personally.
You start with coping.
Coping. Okay, we have writing. It is really, we both did this, actually. We would write out our feelings. She did like poems and stuff. I would just write. I'm not that creative. But I would just write stuff out, even if like it's just like a way to like be really extremely honest with yourself, because you're not always going to want to talk to the people around you and like say what you're really feeling, because obviously that's scary. But yeah, write down what you're thinking, and then it's also going to be fun to look back on. So yeah, do that.
Yeah.
Also cry. It's okay to cry.
Please cry. Like, don't think you can't cry, because
I didn't cry much.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny. It's actually funny. One little fun thing about like the difference between us through breakups
so differently
is like I am a very like emotional person, and I takes a lot. Like, I will sit there and process my emotions all day long and think about every little thing, and I just cried. I like everything.
Yeah.
Like I was one time I went out to try to like do something. It was like a few weeks had passed, and I was like, okay, I need to like get up and get out of my room. So I literally just went to like pick up a basket of shoes that had spilled over and like put the shoes in the basket, and I literally like got down and picked up one of my Converse and just stared at it and cried, and I was like, I'm going back to my bed.
Yeah, so obviously there's a difference in what crying means, because you may be like, she picked up a shoe and she felt comfortable with crying,
and I just cried.
But like you may be like me. I am people who know me know that I am not the most emotional person. Or like I am emotional, but I don't always like show them, especially in the form of tears. But I still felt the emotions, but they just didn't come out in crying. So you may not be like that. So if you don't cry all that ton, is that a great phrase? All that ton?
All that ton. Yeah, yep, there you go. That's the quote.
All that ton.
All that ton.
It's okay. Just like know you can cope in your own way.
Yeah, that's good. I also think that it's okay to accept help. We talked about this in one of our recent podcasts, actually.
I don't remember.
It was like our first one back. We talked about what God's teaching us, and he said accepting help.
Yeah.
But if there are friends and family that are reaching out and want to help you, just like let them do it because they're trying to help, and you may not see it at first, but it could actually make you feel. It
also
better.
help you build relationships in the future. Yeah. Being vulnerable with people is how you build good, strong relationships. So.
Yeah. Another one's like therapy and counseling if you need it. That was something that I needed to do, and it was funny talking about my counselor. It's just like there were definitely times where I was like, what am I doing in this counseling session? But then there are other times where it was helpful. So find a good therapist or counselor that works well with you, and it's good to just process those emotions because you may not realize it, especially if you've been through a harder relationship. It's going to affect your future ones in just different areas of your life, and you may not know. So it's good to work through them and process before that.
Kind of going along those lines is, again, like we said, asking for help, find people around you. Something that I also see on TikTok is like when people are done with a relationship or they break up and they finally tell their friends and stuff everything that was going on in their relationship, and they're like just in awe shock. Like kind of do that, maybe not in that kind of way, but just tell everybody, and so you can just be honest with them, and so they can also be able to remind you, because you're gonna go through those days and you're gonna be like, but it was so good, but you'll have someone to be like, okay, but also, do you remember this? And so that's also good to have.
Yeah. And it's good to remember not to like, you never want to like trash talk as hard as it is. I know it's hard not to like talk bad, but like try your best not to talk bad or trash talk, and try not to take sides as much as you can. Like obviously like when Jalen went through a breakup, like I love Jalen. She's like my sister. Like I'm obviously gonna be like the defendant loyal.
And
like
when Jaden went through a breakup, she's obviously like my sister.
Yeah. So like we're gonna try to like fight for the other person, but you have to remember the other person's a human too. So like try your best to not act like you're like, oh, it's me and her against the world. Like you're trash. Like,
and it's also like it's okay. Like I told a very select few people about like things going on. Too. Everybody doesn't need to know your business.
Oh yeah, that's good.
All they need to know, if you can be like, oh, how are blah 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 blah. You're like, oh, we broke up. You don't have to answer any more questions. That is the end. You can be selfish.
And people are nosy. Okay, they're gonna try to find out your business when they don't need to, just because they like the tea. Okay, just don't shut it down. You don't need to tell anyone anything.
Yep.
Oh, this one is good that you said bringing good into it. You can kind of speak on that.
So this one is that remember that you brought good into the relationship too. It wasn't just the other person, because obviously to be in a relationship, there has to be good of some kind. So just remember that you brought like at least 50% of that. So you're gonna have another relationship after it where it's also good, and hopefully the other person matches that even maybe more. So that just like remember that. Because it's so easy to get down on yourself and think, oh, I'm never going to be in a relationship again that was that good, because rose-colored glasses. But, babes, you are beautiful, amazing, kind, and you're going to bring so much good into your next relationship. Don't get down on yourself.
Yeah, that's really good. Another little fun one is that it's okay not to get rid of everything right away. Like, you do not have to, like, go take all the stuff that reminds you of that person out of your room the day you break up. I mean, you can. If that's how you want to process,
if that's
like,
what
go
you need
for
to
it.
do.
But, like, if you don't, it's okay not to. Like, you can have it sit there for a little bit, and then in the right time, get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Dive into the Word, Christian perspective.
It's good.
Go get in your Bible. Maybe find a Devo about breakups, or, like, healing, whatever you're going through. Find a Devo about it. Dive into the Word. Small groups are a beautiful thing. Yes.
It's also important to find accountability, not to rebound. Right after you get out of a relationship, I mean,
You
some
always think
people
you won't.
process by going out and finding the next guy or girl and living it up, you know? Some people do that. I'm not suggesting that, but like some people do. But also some people you're not going to even want to date for a long time after you end that. But sometimes things sneak up on you, so just find accountability. Sometimes your feelings get a little weird, so find someone. Just make sure that you don't rebound, because chances are that relationship's not gonna like play out the way that you may think it. So that's just another thing to remember.
Try new things.
Yes,
that's all.
Try new things.
It's very self-explanatory.
Jalen already talked a lot on retail therapy, so
yeah,
go out and go shopping if needed. It's really fun and helpful.
Highly recommend.
It's also important for us to note that it's okay, not like if you find it hard to trust God. I think that if you're going through hard situations like that, it's kind of hard to be like, well, I thought that was my only relationship, or I thought that was God's plan for my life, or like, God, why'd you let me like go through this or have this happen? And we're going to talk about it later. Someone asked a really good question about like if the relationship ended, was God in it in the first place? And Jill and I read that. We were like,
so good.
What? Like, that's so good and deep. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. But just remember that it's okay. It's not a sin to doubt. So don't be sitting there and like feel like you're a terrible Christian, or like your relationship with God is over, because it's not.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, just like kind of going off of what we were saying about everybody doesn't need to know your business. This one says if they don't know, they don't know. So they'll live with it. If they don't know, they don't know. They'll move on with their life. There's a tomorrow.
Yeah. And I feel like the last two like ones that we could touch on is that not to forget your worth and what you deserve. Like sometimes, especially if you've been through a harder relationship, you can kind of get pieces of yourself chipped away and you kind of like lose yourself in it. And to remember that like you are worth so much and that there's such like a special future out there for you. And remember that going into the next relationship. Like don't settle. Don't let someone come in and like take advantage of you or not treat you the way that you deserve, because like you will find that relationship where you are treated amazing, and it may take time, but it's just important not to settle and know that you're gonna have that one day.
Also, you have to forgive yourself.
Oh my gosh, that's what I was thinking of.
Wow, we're so good.
So good.
Wow. Yeah, forgive yourself. You made mistakes in the relationship. You both did. And there's going to be a period of time where that's all you can think about. But every day you have to wake up, go to sleep, and forgive yourself. You're not stupid, okay? You were in love, right? And like we said, there are just so many things that go along with being in love, so just forgive yourself.
Yeah, and it may take a lot of time. Like I found for myself, it took me months, like even like up to a year after I went through a breakup, like to just forgive myself and remember like that everything's going to be okay. And you're not going to forget the memories right away. I think that's sometimes a misconception as well. Like, oh, like everything's just going to like go away. Yeah. But like you probably are going to carry the things that happened to you or like in that relationship, if it was a very big part of your life, for the rest of your life. It's not going to be in like a big way. It may be memories in the back of your head, but it's just important to remember to process them and know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can probably move into the Q&A.
Okay.
These questions that you guys submitted, we're thankful that you guys did. Thank you to everyone that submitted one. But man, you guys asked some good questions.
There's some good questions.
They're very good questions.
Okay. Oh, I don't know which one to start with. They're all so much.
Pick whichever one.
Yeah, we're at 50 minutes.
Oh my gosh, we could get through this in one episode.
Okay. Healthy strategies to overcome any trauma or trust issues. And the 5 stages of grief?
Yeah, I think they asked both. Okay. They wanted to touch on both.
Okay. So what are you going to say?
Okay, healthy strategies to overcome any trauma/trust issues. Okay, so if you've been through a very traumatic relationship or a very difficult one that has changed your life in a lot of different ways, it's obviously going to take a lot of time and it's going to be hard. That's why I think it's important, like we said, to get therapy or counseling or have those friends that you can speak into and focus on yourself for a period. I think it's wise to maybe not jump into something right away. Like if you are finding that you have a lot of trauma and you're gonna have trust issues, like work through them and take whatever time you need, and be honest too. Like if you're getting into another relationship, tell them, be like, listen, this is what I've gone through in the past. Like I want to work together on this. Like there may be things where we're gonna have little fights or situations where it's purely from trauma or trust issues that I've had, and I want to work through them together. I think it's important just to be honest if you're getting into another relationship. But yeah, what do you have to say?
To overcome trust issues, I would say specifically on like the trauma or trust, not everyone is going to be the same.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And not everybody is built the same. Obviously, everybody has their own flaws and their own mistakes and their own problems, but it's not all gonna be the exact same as it was before. And I feel like it may be very easy to think about that and go into a relationship thinking about it that way. But just remember that. That's what I would say into that.
And it's important if you're like a friend of someone to remind them, like there are times where I leaked in the last video that we did.
Yes.
my relationship.
Thank you. There's so many times I've been wanting to say that in this episode.
We're gonna just talk about it. So I'm in another relationship right now, and there were so many times when I was going into it where I'd be sitting there and I'd view the person I am with now as people from the past. And I would have that trust issue and trauma. And I literally have to tell them, like, I'd literally be like, oh, this happened, or like, they did this, or they said this. And like, I think that like, I'm like upset, and like, I don't know if this is going to work. And they have to be like, Jaden, like, they are not the same person. One, they're not perfect. You're going to have little situations. And two, like, they're not them. And it's so easy to like, look at someone and be like, oh, like, they're the same person. They are going to do the same things the other person did. But like, no. So that's very good to know.
All right. The next question. How do you deal with the personal feeling of what was and what is?
Okay, so that kind of goes into the one that we just said, like kind of dealing with the stuff that you went through. We just said like take time to reflect and mourn the loss of like what the relationship was. Like you need to have that time to process. So take whatever time you need. It's okay to say no to things, like if people want to go out, or like someone like is interested in like maybe like dating or anything, like it's okay to say no and just be like, no, I'm not ready right now. Like I just need time alone to process.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like going into the next relationship after you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've mourned, I've moved on. But you get into the next relationship and things like that happened or some come back up. And so you kind of have to go through that. You have to mourn the loss in a different viewpoint almost.
Yeah. And I think too, like, it's important to know if maybe you were in a relationship where you have like made mistakes, or you have a lot of other guilt and stuff that you are carrying with you. Like it's important to process that, and like it said, like dealing with what is and what was. Like you may have left that knowing like, okay, like I've made mistakes, or like I've done things, and now like how am I gonna move on? Like part of my heart is now with this person, but like I want to move forward. Like how am I supposed to do it? But it's important to know that like it's gonna be okay. And like we said, like you have to forgive yourself, because if you don't forgive yourself first, like you're gonna carry it with you through the rest of your life, and you're not gonna realize it, but it's gonna leak into every area of your life. So you have to forgive yourself.
The next question is the one we were talking about. It says, getting into that relationship, was I not listening to the Lord's voice? Was I going off of emotions? And immediately what I think of is you very easily can have been listening to the Lord's voice, because he leads you through trials to grow you and for you to learn from something. So whether it was learning what was good or learning what was bad, whatever you did learn, obviously at some point I do think there may be like a shift from following the Lord to following your emotions. But yeah, there was a lesson in there, and God obviously knows, like he gives you options, but he knows what you're going to choose. So he will make it worth that time, and he will give you a lesson to learn from it.
Yeah, that's good. I think this is a very hard question because you don't want to speak, like, I personally do not want to speak for God. I think that if your relationship was, like, very traumatic and bad, I'm just going to guess that God did not tell you, oh, date this person and, like, I want you to go through all these other things. Like, God didn't do that. There was probably a time in there where you made your own decisions, but, like, I like how you said, like, we're not robots. Like, God lets us have free will. So, like, he lets you make those decisions. Like, he didn't tell you to make those decisions. He lets you. That doesn't mean that, like, he left you, though, which kind of goes into the next question, I think.
What's the next question, Jaden?
Does the breakup mean God wasn't in the relationship? Which that's, again, another deep question. Yeah. Because I think it's important to know that, like, God was always in the relationship. He never leaves you. He's always there. It's just a matter of, like, there could be a few different factors. Was he the foundation of the relationship for both of you? Like, not just you. So key. Maybe from your point of view, you're like, oh, yeah, God was the foundation. But, like, for the other person, was he? Or did they have, like, other motives in their minds? So, yeah. Do you want to kind of touch on that a little bit?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know.
It's hard because, I mean.
It's so hard.
We could literally, there's so many different avenues.
Yeah, but, like, kind of what she was saying, does the breakup mean that God wasn't in the relationship? Like she said, if God is in you, God is in the relationship. But it depends on if God's the foundation. I feel like that's, like, more of the question, if God was the foundation of the relationship.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know. I feel like there's just so many shifts that happen in relationships. Like, you can't just say no or yes. Like, maybe there was a time when he was, and then that slowly started to shift. Maybe you started to shift as a person, or the other person started to shift as a person, and that therefore caused, like, the foundation to, like, kind of be like, oh, and you kind of lost where it was going. But yeah, that's the honest. I don't know. It's just so hard because you can't say yes or no.
Yeah, because, like, well, yes, 100%. God was always in the relationship. Like, whether he was, like Jill said, whether he was the foundation or not, like, he's in it. So I don't want you to be like, oh, God wasn't, like, there for me. But also, like, even if it wasn't a bad relationship, bad ending, maybe you were just two friends that were like, oh, by your own decision, again, free will, you were like, oh, let's see if this could be more.
Yeah.
You find out, oh, we're just better off as friends. We're going to be friends for the rest of our lives. Everything's good. Like, that doesn't mean it was bad. It doesn't mean God was, like, not in the relationship. Yeah, he was in a relationship. You just chose for yourself with free will if you wanted to see if it was more, and it wasn't. So, again, don't put that pressure and feel like again, just don't put that pressure on yourself. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's just that relationships are just a hard thing. I feel like we can definitely dive into it, like, especially these questions. I feel like we could dive into it so much, but those are our thoughts on them. Is there another question? Or
I think that was everything. I do kind of want to know at the end, though, I just thought of this again, like, you can't ruin God's plan for your life. So whether you took a little detour with your own will, like, God has a plan for that route, or you go this way, like, God has a plan for that route. Like, there's always a plan, whether it's just gets a little messy or it's a straight path, which it never is. So just remember that the
way is narrow.
Yeah, whichever relationship you've been through, or if you haven't been in one yet and you're waiting to get into one, like, God has a plan
don't let us scare you.
Yeah, I hope this episode wasn't
scary. If you haven't been in a relationship, or, like, you're moving on, we're not scaring you out of ever being in a relationship. Relationships are a good thing. God created us for relationship. He created Adam and Eve. That is God's ordained. Obviously, he loves people who are single. Like, if that's what you're calling. What was his face? What was the guy in the Bible?
Paul? Yeah. What was his face?
Oh my gosh, that is embarrassing. That's so funny. Paul was single. Jesus was single, and you can still have such a great ministry. You can use your singlehood as a ministry in itself. So don't let us scare you either way. But this is just, like, what we've gone through and what we feel like we can speak into.
Yeah, and like we said at the beginning, like, dating isn't meant to get this, like, crazy. Like, I don't want you to hear what we say and you're like, oh, this is what every relationship is, right? Like, I don't want it. Really? Like, no, like, it's not. Like, if you date with the right intention on both parties, you date with the right motives, like, even if you break up, it can still be a healthy breakup. Like, it's just how you do it, and that's why we encourage you to, like, dive into resources, even if you're not dating and you're single right now and that's something that you, like, want for yourself one day. Like, read books, podcasts. Like, I wish that I had before any of this had, like,
I totally, there are so many people, I've heard this before, where like if there's people who are single reading relationship books, they're like, why are they doing that? It's because we're preparing our heart. Please, like, you should prepare your heart.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe on the Instagram we can share some of our. I think we've read a few. Yeah. Relationship, or we have resources. We should do that actually this week. I'm gonna write that down. We'll share some resources of like things that could be really helpful. But yeah, that's all for this episode. I think this was a fun one. Hopefully it was informational and fun to listen to.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be good. Yeah. Anyway, should I do my little?
You can. Okay. Before though, if you have, thank you to everyone that submitted questions. Yeah. Like we said, if you have any questions or topics that you want us to answer, message us. We'll be more than happy to.
Yes. Do we want to do the what life first, or do you want me to do the thingy?
Wait, what's the thingy?
Okay, I'll just do it. I'll just do it.
Okay.
Thank you for what. Oh, dang it. Wait. Trying again. Take 2. Okay. Thank you for listening to What a Life Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at What a Life Pod. You can follow Jaden at Jaden_Noel_ or Jalen at Jalen_Hannah. Again, thank you for listening to What a Life Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube at What a Life Pod.
And if you would like to leave us a review, please do that. We greatly appreciate it. And yeah.
Yep. What a life.
What a life. I think this ending is going to stick.